actually you just get their kind, and so that way they can multiply and become all the animals we have.
Like cats have multiple varieties, but two cats.
Everyone mocked Noah when he was building the ark. Yes, they're like, well, this is foolish. We don't even have rain. Like we live. Well, this might open up. We live in this dome like a greenhouse. Like we don't even get much rain while we're building ships. God's promise of the rainbow, and then not lasted 40 days and 40 nights. I kept reading that as lasted. I was like, what does lasted mean? But I didn't see the T part. But yeah, it lasted 40 days and 40 nights. Well, that's how long it rained. Holly, how long did it last?
Over a year.
Over a year, yes. So, all right, there's a lot of information. Several times after we look at the verses, we're going to discuss and have some questions. And then along the way, just ask any questions, because this kind of opens up almost Pandora's box to a lot of other things that science, evolution, creation, all that has to do with sin and recreating the earth and everything like that. And so there might be some other questions that you bring up. I'll do my best to answer. So starting in Genesis chapter 6, 13 to 17, if someone could read that to get us started.
And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits, its breadth, 50 cubits, and its height, 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark, and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is a breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die.
All right, so right before this, the Lord looks around and there's nothing but evil. Everybody he sees, everything that's going on, he just gives this general statement of everybody's evil, everybody hates one another, they're just looking out for themselves, they're just very individual, they're not working as my people. They're not serving one another, they're not taking care of one another, they're not in community, they really are just fighting back and forth and jealous of one another. And again, this is a general statement because we're going to find out that Noah and his family are saved. So it's not everyone, but in a general sense, it is. There's just wickedness going on in the world. So the Lord says, I have decided to put an end to every creature, for earth is filled with wickedness because of them, and therefore I'm going to destroy them along with the earth. And so when God looked at everything, he just thought a restart, a redo of everything is the best way. So he tells Noah to get gopher wood. We don't really know exactly what type of tree this is. It's not a tree that's common to us, or maybe even common to in today, like you go to certain places and find this wood, but it's a very light but very dense, very light but very dense. And so that's the type of wood he said to use. And then he says to make rooms in the ark and to cover it with pitch on the inside and out. Basically, when you put it together, it'd be like putting the wood together and then put the pitch in between, and that's what sealed it up and like would make it to point where it was waterproof. And so it put it on the inside and outside. That way, if something came off, there was still the backup. And so he told him exactly how to do it. Told him the size, 450 feet long, 70 feet wide, and 45 feet high. You to make a roof, finishing the size of the ark to within 18 inches of the roof. And then you're to put a door on the ark and to have lower, middle, and upper decks within the ark. And so you see, just like everything else God does, there's nothing of chance, nothing to question. He gives exactly the details of what needs to happen, how to do it. And then he says, I'm going to bring a flood that is going to kill everything that is not in the ark. And so this is kind of an image of what it would look like. And so you can see the one door on the side, and where it said to make the roof 18 inches above the walls, that would be that center section right down the middle. there. So when you're looking at this, what are some things that kind of stand out to you that's maybe would make this unique than a normal boat?
It's completely enclosed.
Yeah, it's going to be completely enclosed, and to the point where God says, "I will close the door," meaning you get everybody in, everybody gets in there, everybody's inside. I will close the door. He seals it up. What else?
I know the top part, but like, what is on the side? Like,
I think that's still just like the construction, the scaffolding.
Is there at least windows?
So, like, that's the unique thing.
But didn't they like let a dove go?
Yeah.
I know there was
So
a
it
window,
probably
right?
would be most likely up top.
Like ventilation.
Where the ventilation,
That's
but
what I'm
it
wondering.
can't be too much because there is a lot of rain coming. 40
what I was
days of
thinking,
rain,
like, how do they
and then I think
breathe?
another.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, okay,
Reality
with
of
the
it
heat
is not
and
pleasant.
Yeah.
lack of
So
They
there must have
survive.
been some type of ventilation across that rooftop, but the rest is enclosed. And also when,
because it's multiple levels.
like, he sends out the bird, but it's like, why don't you just look out the window and look? But because the window is probably a hatch on the top. They can,
To help build.
or something on the top where they would have to get to with it. But basically, it is like a floating coffin, really. It's just completely enclosed.
Imagine.
And when you think about what we're going to get to, like how long this actually took, you'll know that's why it had to be like this. And made out of that certain wood makes it to where it's light, but yet very dense, so it can last and withstand everything that's going to happen with the storms and everything that's about to come. If you're really interested in this, I have not been myself, but if you go to the Ark exhibit in, what is it?
Cincinnati.
Kentucky,
Or
North Kentucky, Ohio border. You can walk through this whole thing. Has anybody been? Alyssa.
Take a class field trip.
You can see, like, it's to scale, right?
Yeah, it's to scale. So you got kind of walk through the whole thing, right? And as you go, they'll explain why certain things are the way they are and kind of give the best.
Is it like
Understanding.
completely accurate?
Mm-hmm.
We should
Yeah.
a
So what
class
was the
trip.
ventilation?
Field trip.
Well, that's a little modern.
So, yeah, they also have the Creation Museum there as well. So you can spend a couple days at this place. But very interesting. We've been to the Creation Museum twice, and one of the times they were almost done with it, but they weren't. But it's massive. So what, 450 feet? Is that football field and a half?
Yeah.
So 1.5 football fields. So think about, like, that's how long it is. And then it's 75 feet wide. What's,
It's not close. The football field's 160 feet wide.
so,
It's half.
so it'd be half,
Yeah.
so that long.
That'll be Matthew.
So,
Yes, it was.
but
We
it's,
did it by hand.
it's, yeah. And it took them a long time to build it.
How long would that take?
I think it says in scripture, but I didn't read it. When it starts, because Moses is the writer, and he's very specific. Like, in order to get to the point where you understand how many days this actually was or how long it took, you have to take into account how old he is, and then what it says how old he was when God called him, and like add it all together to get the fullness of all that. But all right, we're gonna move on to a rescue promise, Genesis 6:18-22. If someone could read that for us.
But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee, to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for their food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he.
All right, so it says, I'm going to establish my covenant with you. Basically, that if you do what I say, you build this, and you put everything on it, I will save you and your family, and you will repopulate the earth. That is the covenant. And then we're going to see the fullness of the covenant in the promise that God will never flood the earth like he did here. Doesn't mean that it's never going to rain, because we see rain all the time. Doesn't mean there's not going to be hurricanes or destruction that comes from storms and things like that. But ultimately, he's never going to destroy everything like he did at this point. So you will enter the ark with your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. And so I don't know if there's kids, grandkids, or anything like that, but ultimately, I think he has 3 sons and their wives, and then also Noah and his wife are all in there with the animals. And you are also to bring into the ark 2 of all the living creatures, male, female, keep them alive with you. 2 of everything, from the birds according to their kind, the livestock according to their kinds, and the animals that crawl on the ground according to their kind. So basically, instead of having to have one of every animal, whatever would work to get us to where we are today with all the animals and different type of animals, that's what was basically brought on the ark. And so you don't have to have every animal if they can produce that kind of animal, like cats, dogs, I don't know what else, but the different types of elephants, or the different types of when we're talking cats, I'm not just talking inside cats, but like all the different types of cats we have, deer, everything, turkeys, every type of animal. And he talks about the ones that fly, the ones that are on the ground, and the ones that are livestock. Will come to you. God sends them to. They don't have to go out and rope them, and they don't have to go out and trap them and shoot them or anything like that. Put a tranquilizer on them and drag them into there. God is going to send every kind of animal to them. So every animal that's supposed to be on there. Most of the time, when you look at the Noah's story, I still think it's hilarious that we put this in preschools and preschool departments, that God is murdering or killing all of the earth, and we're going to put that as the niceness of it. But it's the animals. What do we usually see? All lined up, 2 by 2, right? 2 cats, 2 tigers, all walking in, and they're just,
That's what the kids focus on.
like they're going to a concert or something, just coming in the gate, paying their ticket, getting in. No, you're not. Nope, you can't go. Trying to sneak in here. And then also, it's a year. They got to have enough food. And he talks about every kind of food that is eaten, meaning that every type of food that each of these animals need, they need. And food for yourself, have all of that.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That how they had that much.
And they had to
food
take
and
it
space.
in form to keep growing it, I would think,
Yeah,
to a degree.
Like they had to take trees, probably, like some kind of bush or something to grow trees. I don't know.
But there was no
Yeah,
sunlight.
I need a little more
Yeah, there was no
context.
sunlight, so
Got some UV
mean, like
lights in there, got some electricity running. No,
Can't
there's
keep
no
weeds alive.
electricity, there's none of that. So yeah, just,
There had to be some form of light.
yes.
Like lettuce, like.
You would think.
we would know how to fire.
Are you telling me that these animals were just chilling inside of a boat for an entire year?
And then at the end of this, it says that Noah was obedient. He did everything that the Lord had commanded. So he followed it to the T, did exactly what it says. So, the question for this so far, or for the first couple verses, is how do verses 18 to 22 demonstrate God's grace and care for his creation? So when you look at that, how does God show grace to and care for his creation? On the one hand, he's like, they're all wicked and I'm going to kill them all.
Yeah.
And what are we taught is the definition for grace?
Getting what you don't deserve. Wait.
Not getting what we do. No, that's
No,
mercy.
that's mercy.
That's mercy. Grace is getting what we don't deserve.
Grace is getting what we don't deserve. And so when God looked at everything, he just thought, I'm going to start over. But he showed grace to Noah because he was faithful, that he was a man that was faithful to God, him and his family. And then also all of the animals, this is still God's creation. This is still what he desired, what he wanted. And so he saved a portion of that to be able to repopulate the earth and to restart it over again. And so even in that, we see his grace and his care, that he's like, not only get the animals, but you got to have enough food. You got to have enough of this. You got to have like all the things that are needed to make this sustainable, you need to have with you. And so he talks about adding all of this. All right. Again, we're trying to get through a lot, so we're going to move on to judgment executed in Genesis 7:20 to 24. And so we skip a little bit gap there. It's just when the animals are called, when the animals are brought, and then God closes it up, and then this is what happens.
The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep, and all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land, in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things, and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days.
So the mountains were covered over 25 feet. So think of the
water was 25 feet above the top.
25 feet above the highest mountain. So the Noah's Ark is above everything else. Like, probably, so it's floating above everything that is. So if you were to look out, all you would see was water. Every creature perished. So just like God said, He destroyed everything that's on it. And He talks about the earth, the bird, livestock, wildlife, everything. It even goes a little more detail of that even swarms on the earth. And at first I'm like, well, why don't they just fly? But there's nothing to land on. There's no food. There's nothing. So eventually there's nowhere to go. And so
How did like the animals that swim die?
yeah.
Like dolphins.
So
Because their water mixed together and they get fresh water, salt water.
Well, in the rush of water, like
yeah. So
the quickness of how.
the best way I can explain it is, have you ever been to where there's an actual like natural spring?
Yes.
And the water just comes up out of the ground? Like that's what this happens. So when it talks about the water coming, it's not only coming from the top, it's coming from the bottom too. And so it's just this rush of destroying everything, even the ground, like coming up out of the ground. It's destroying that as well. And so it's just chaos through it all. As far as every fish, I have no real answer. This is probably where Megalodon died. He never came back. Yeah. So,
He didn't think that's on the ark.
yeah, so basically, and then we get to the bottom, only Noah was left, and the water surged on the earth for 150 days. So question and answers that come along with this so far. Besides fish, I don't have an answer for that.
Did the water just evaporate afterwards? Where did it go?
So that's, so my take, and
Never know. This could be a very dangerous
Based on study, based on.
yeah, this is those interpretation of everything. So I believe that the world, you ever see where it's all like connected together?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe like at the beginning, that's what it was like. And then when the waters come from underneath and from the top, that's what divides it up and separates it out. And so,
It was all underwater.
so what was the question?
Where did the water go?
Oh, where did the water go? So then when it resided and what was torn up out of the ground, that's where we get our oceans to the size they are, and the lakes and everything like that. So it seeps back into the ground basically.
We're on the boat for a while after the rain
they're
stopped.
still on.
Yeah,
They're on.
water had to
It
soak
rains
in
for
basically.
like that. The turmoil was for 40 days, and then it rained for another, I think, 150 days after that. And then, yeah, so that when it resides, then I think that's where we get our oceans from and everything like it is today, or as similar to that as possible with it.
Good theory.
So, questions? Other questions?
everybody's got like a blank.
Yeah, it's just trying to take it all in.
I mean, no
It's a lot
matter
of
how you look at
information.
it, there's still a lot of miraculous things that God did through all of this. I mean, it's just a continuation, a picture of His greatness through all of it still.
And I think for
Yes.
me, a lot of like the old Earth, millions of years old, I think this has a lot to do with why it looks like it's that old. When you think about the chaos or how disruptive this would have been to the whole system, and you can see why things would be out of place or that you would find bones all over the world. But yet, it's like, how did they get to that place? Or how did they get over here? And what's the word again, Brad? Where they're all Pangea. Pangea, so they could travel from all over. And then when the flood comes, it destroys everything in that. How come nobody's brought up dinosaurs yet?
She just
I said it. I decided I needed to stop asking questions. Mumbled it under my breath.
Yeah, why were they excluded?
So I don't think they were.
They weren't.
They were on the
So,
ark. So did they get on the ark?
so
Okay.
Wait,
Hold on. Now think about it.
So-
Just because something is a dinosaur, it says two of its kind.
Alligator.
yeah, so
Different reptiles. The big giant ones wouldn't have fit maybe.
well, they would if they were little. They
Where
were
they took baby sizes.
like even the biggest dinosaurs were probably like the size of a horse when they were born.
What if all the animals were babies?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that would be the smart way.
There's
to
a
do it.
good good logic to that too, that they were babies of whatever.
And then so I think the majority are there, and they're kind. And up to this point, I would still say that whatever dinosaurs were there before the flood are omnivore. And so, like, you don't have that whole, like, they're a threat to me. I do believe that at some point, man and dinosaurs lived at the same time. So,
I mean, these people were alive for like 500 years.
um,
I don't want to.
But like, so the kind, so like you're talking about like predatorial animals, so like those probably were just like house cats, not like big giant. Or those
yeah, but they're omnivore at that point. So they're not killing one another.
Really?
Yes, and so when Noah gets to the other side of the flood, he says, "Now that I'm giving you everything to eat." Before it was just everything that grows and produces fruit, and then he's going to say, "Now everything is good for food, but only things that are clean."
I saw a theory that like it was a scientist looking at the fossils and he took it from a Christianity standpoint, and the mix of the two, like it wasn't like these fossils are not as old as we think. Like he proved, I don't remember everything, but like he proved that some major situation, and he related it to the ark.
Mhm.
Like the way that all these fossils crystallized or whatever happened like immediately. It wasn't like, oh, they died and they sunk into the earth and then more earth and more earth. Like it was just like the ark
if you think about it,
flood.
like you take a bucket of sand and then fill the rest with like half it sand, half it, and then fill the rest with water and stir it all up, put something in it, and then when it's done, it's going to compress. Or if you're in sand and then you put water in it, it just like really gets hard around you. And I think that's part of why we see the rapidness of the fossils and why we see them so deep, or where we see them for different reasons, part of the flood. Just that whole idea of everything just being disrupted like that. Now, with that, also, I don't know where all of you guys stand. I'm a young Earth believer, but if you're an old Earth, like it's not a problem. Like you can make a case for either one. It's not a place of disfellowship or we can't hang out type thing, and it shouldn't be for you guys as well. Just because someone believes a little bit different than you, this is a whole lot of. We're taking a book that's not meant for science and adding a lot of science to it when we talk about Noah and things like that. But we we have to have an answer for a lot of this because that's what the world's asking. Or why can you believe the Bible and this, and how do they work together? And so working through some of these questions and things like that is good. All right, we're going to go on to the next set of verses, and I think we're going to spend a little bit of time on this one. So they wait. Genesis 8:10-14. This is what is going on while they're on the ship, and then, or on the ark, and then what happens at the end. So if someone could read that for us.
So Noah waited 7 more days and sent out the dove from the ark again. When the dove came to him at evening, there was a plucked olive leaf in its beak. So Noah knew that the water on the earth's surface had gone down. After he had waited another 7 days, he sent out the dove, but it did not return to him again. In the 601st year, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the water that had covered the earth was dried up. Then Noah removed the ark's cover and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. By the 27th day of the second month, the earth was dry.
All right, so the timeline, if you like timelines. So for 40 days, rain is coming from the top and the bottom. For 110 days, there's light rain continues. For 74 days, there's no rain. 40 days after that, after no rain, the raven was sent out. And then 7 days later, a dove. 7 more days, a dove again. And then 7 days, a dove is sent and never comes back. And then he waits another 29 days and removes the top. And then 57 days later, Noah and his family actually exit the ark. So there's 371 days total is the timeline on all this. And I always love this part of the story. I don't know why. Like, just the practical side of, let's just send out a bird and let's see if they come back. Just, like, let that be the test of what's actually out there. Because if it's flying around and there's nothing, it'll return. And then when it comes back with a olive leaf, that means that there's stuff starting to grow and that there's life coming back and that God is producing again. And then finally, when it doesn't come back again after that, meaning that there must be land or somewhere for it to go, a tree to land in, or food to be found. And so God is starting to provide. God is starting to replenish his earth, and goes into very detailed, which must have been passed down verbally to Moses throughout all this, because Moses is obviously not alive, but he knows exactly the day that all this happened. The water had recovered and has dried up, and so he removes that middle section, and then he can get out there and he can see what's going on, what it looks like, and what the earth looks like at this point. And then finally, they exit with it. All right, so the question for this one is, what do you do for over a year on an enclosed ship and probably just one window or hatch on top? So what do you do for a year? You sing. Feed the animals. Like, you think about how many animals there are, and there's only 6 people in there. Like, you got chores to do every day. And if the hatch is only on the top,
You sit on the top. Sit about the top.
what do you do with
Like, I would stick my face
what
out
the
whatever
animals
window.
produce?
I sure hope they brought little tiny
They
animals.
probably use it for something.
Maybe they used it for fire. I don't know.
Maybe the
Fire on
They
a
use it for
Maybe-
fertilizer.
Yeah, fertilizer
Fertilizer.
and
Maybe the
stuff.
bugs that they brought in it.
Huh?
Maybe the bugs that they brought
Yeah.
in it.
Maybe the whole ecosystem in there. You ever have like
Like a little
a
greenhouse.
aquarium? It's like, this is a very big aquarium and how all things work together.
Art.
They have like paints. I think they use some of that maybe to make.
Make rugs. Maybe.
Probably prayed a lot.
Yeah, I would think those animals must kept them busy for the most part.
There were probably so many
But-
animals before, as soon as they were done for the day.
It'd start all over again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they even finished on a day.
And if they kept the Sabbath, which they probably were very, very committed to the Sabbath, so they didn't have to work every day. It's like, yes, finally, we're going to get this down. We do nothing on this Sunday or Saturday at this point. On Saturday,
Somebody had to cook.
yeah, there's.
Or like 60 below.
Well, they're not really cooking meat, so they're eating the grain or
Yeah.
producing it or making it into oatmeal or
No.
Well,
Mush. They ate
okra.
those.
You gotta
So
milk
they
the
didn't
cow.
ate different
until
things.
after the flood. I did not know that.
And then only clean meat after the flood.
They're only what?
Only clean. Like they would say, I don't know, probably get to it, but certain things in bottom feeder type, like you probably couldn't eat catfish at all. Shrimp, that kind of stuff, couldn't eat. And then on land, like pigs and stuff like that, they wouldn't eat.
No bacon?
No bacon. No bacon till the New Testament. Just unclean, dirty animals or a lot of disease and pork and things like that.
A
So
lot of that was for
that's
their protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he forbid it, not.
And then, I mean, low and slow, and then we can really have pig. Turns out really good. So, all right, there's some practical things that I have no idea. And then finally, let's get to the last set of verses. So this is where the covenant kind of comes in and the start of the covenant.
Then God said to Noah, go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth, went out by families from the ark.
All right, so two things is like this is so common in the Old Testament. God will say something and then they write exactly that they followed through with it. So this is really just a short passage that basically everything came off the ark. Noah and his family, all the animals, and the birds, the livestock, the crawl of the earth, and they will spread over the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. And so you go back to Genesis, when it talks about mankind, what are we supposed to do? Be fruitful and multiply. Same with the animals, be fruitful and multiply again on the earth. And they are to spread over the whole earth. And so this is all concentrated in one spot, and then now we have animals everywhere. So if now I just said that all the land masses are separated, so how do all these animals get everywhere? What you guys take?
They swim.
They swim?
You got another boat? Probably didn't want to get another boat.
Get out
I don't wanna get on a boat forever.
Now that we know how to make a boat, we can get you guys to other places. You just
Maybe
gotta-
you like just dropped them off.
Threw them out the hatch.
Here you go.
Peace.
What-
This is your snack.
Harrison, I think you got a good one. What do you
No, I
think?
don't.
You don't have one?
No.
I don't know if they like maybe followed migrating patterns or anything like that
Yeah,
at that point.
so there must have been some type of bridge for them to travel. So what other,
Little land
what,
bridge.
what other thing that we're pretty sure happened at some point in the history of the earth?
A lot of things.
No, like a big, huge thing, like a flood, and then
Boom.
The meteorite thing?
an ice age.
Oh.
And so the ice age could be a good bridge. And where's the ice age gonna be? Where's most of ice gonna be? North. And how far is it from Russia to Alaska?
Maybe like 50 miles.
Yes, not much. And so to have icebergs or ice build up like that is not too far fetched if there is a ice age, which pretty much at some point there was an ice age of some sort, and with the disruption of all of the ecosystem of the way the world works or the way God has designed it, the ice age would be very practical to happen right after this. And the reason why it doesn't affect a whole lot of people is because there's not a whole lot of people on the earth at that point. And so when people talk about the ice age and things like that, you can see that people can migrate that way, animals can migrate that way and travel and they can basically connect to anywhere. Birds, obviously, they can just fly to wherever they need to. They still do it. You can see their migration
I
patterns.
say that Alaska and Russia used to connect.
Probably with, show the last picture, Rob, I have up there. Yeah. So basically, what are you saying? It's like 50 miles. And so if there's an ice, like that's where the ice is going to be. And
They really are too.
to make it to where they could travel from one place to the other.
And also, if like the continents had just begun to separate, then they're not that far.
Yes.
It could have been over
Yeah,
time that they spread.
And then when the ice age melts, that's when we really get how deep it is. And so a lot more was connected at one point. I mean, this
It's a slow breaking.
I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory, but I mean,
That's one.
I saw it on the YouTube. So,
Oh, no.
I thought it was about to say Facebook.
Oh.
but there's some that say this is in Africa is at the Sahara Desert. In the middle of that, there's perfectly round circles, like it could be Atlantis. Maybe when it was underwater at one point. Just saying.
That's not where I thought you were going with this.
It's out there. But yeah, this is again like our best assumptions and things like that. But I would say that the ice age happened right after, and that's how animals were able to migrate. And that's why you only find certain type of animals that can live in the cold. And that's kind of my idea of evolution. I think. What did you call it the one time? Micro and
Micro, macro.
Yeah, micro, macro, and
Macro being I don't know the difference between the two.
yeah.
But one's where it's like essentially thinking that it's like the more evolutionary side of things where I don't know, like a microorganism evolved into but micro is like small changes over time.
Yeah, so it's like if you put 20 dogs in Alaska, what dogs are going to last? The ones with long hair that can handle the cold. All the others are going to die off, and so that's why you only find certain type. And ultimately, God is going to move people all over the earth, and that happens at the Tower of Babel. And so that's why we have people everywhere. And I think there are some initial migration, but that is a long way. For animals, it's one thing for mankind to travel and to be separated from a society for that long. But that's where the Tower of Babel comes in, and we'll look at that later. All right. Yeah, so we kind of talked about this last question, but how do the animals get to everywhere? All right, any more questions about Noah, Ark, life back then? It might be not a question that you're asking, but where does Job fit into this? And I think Job is after the flood. So Job is a patriarch, and so he's probably at the same time as Abraham. So when we get to Abraham's story, Job is happening about the same time. Job talks, there's two things in Job. One, Job talks about a flood, and so that it was passed down, so he probably knew the story. And so he talks about it. And then also there's a couple of cases in Job where maybe there's a dinosaur in his backyard and something. So,
Yeah.
So at least one dinosaur made it through the flood.
Baby.
Little pet.
Took the egg.
Kind of.
They transported eggs.
Hey.
obviously.
I mean, if they just do what the
Well, wouldn't that be
Wait.
scary if they didn't know that was going to come out of that?
It came from an egg. What happened? I did hear one time that if there were big dinosaurs like that there could have been, but maybe they didn't survive, you know,
On the ark?
no, once they got on land, because everything was so different, like temperatures, food availability, all those things, that they just might have gone extinct because they just couldn't
the Ice
survive
Age
in the
part of it.
new, yeah.
Oh, we got one more verse to look at, so.
Okay.
I forgot. I was like, there's something else I was gonna bring up, but someone could finish it out with this. This is what Noah did when they got off.
Then Noah built an altar to the Lord. He took some of every kind of clean animal and every kind of clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. When the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, he said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of human beings, even though the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth onward, and I will never again strike down every living thing as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease.
All right, so Noah gets off and he builds an altar. We talked about this a little bit with Cain and Abel. I mean, it might not be specific, it might not be to the point of Leviticus on what is acceptable offering, how you're supposed to make a sacrifice and everything like that, but it is passed down to at least Noah understands that there's a difference between clean and unclean, and he makes a sacrifice of clean animals and clean birds as an offering to the Lord. So he basically takes these animals, kills them, and then burns them on an altar, cooks them basically, and then that aroma goes up to the Lord and he is pleased by it. We didn't read it, but in chapter 7 it says to take one of each kind except for clean animals and clean birds, and to take 7 of those. So God was providing from the beginning, like that when you get to the other side of all this and you are to make an altar and you are to make a sacrifice, I'm provided 7, meaning that even if they died during that time, there would still be a backup to God's plan. So that way he could worship God on the other side, that he could honor the Lord for his grace, his mercy in their lives, and then just the protection of God's sovereignty over all of this. And so he is able to worship and to provide these sacrifices. And the Lord sees it and he says, again, it's what we know. Human heart is evil from youth onward. There's nothing good in us when we're born. I know some of you have kids and you like get that baby and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, it's so perfect. They grow up, don't they?
We were just talking about Royce.
They'll make you realize that they are evil from youth onward. But the Lord says that he knows this, he understands this is how it is, but he's never going to strike down the living things as he did at this point. As long as the earth endures, seed time, harvest, cold and heat, summer, winter, day and night will not cease. There was none of this before. It was like a greenhouse. Like there was this protection around all of the people and where they lived and how everything worked in this kind of incubator. After that, we have seasons now. We have harvest time. We have cold and heat. We have summer and winter. We have day and night. All of these types of things. We had day and night before, but we didn't have the weather and things like that before. It was all perfect. But because of that, God destroyed all of that, and now we have what we have. And that's why we're going to have 12-degree weather this week. Or other places that are going to be 50 below. I don't know what it's going to be. Anybody see the pictures of Buffalo? Like, of the storm yesterday, it looked like a hurricane was going on there, but it was just snow going everywhere. They're paying people $20 an hour to go shovel out the stadium.
They got a raise it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean,
That's freaking cold.
it is so cold. My family, where we live in Michigan, is right by Lake Michigan, but not close enough to it to where we miss the snow. We get all the lake effect where it comes over and waits and then dumps it all where we lived or where we grew up. So they're going to get, I think it's 18 inches now on Tuesday. And they just had like 6 inches, so 3 or 4, yeah. I think she said up to 6 inches, my sister did. So, but all of this is after this, and then as the systems get put into place, then we get it to stabilize, and then now we are living in and basically more stable than what it was at this point. After the flood, and then after the ice age, and then finally what we kind of have, and now we have the opposite. We have the global warming side of everything. And I would suggest not to read too much into that, but I mean, it is getting warmer. But how much is it affecting, or how that happens? Is it just part of systems, or is it just part of this ebb and flow of how the world works, and it gets warmer, gets colder, back and forth? I don't know. We're only alive for part of it, so we never get to see the fullness of it all. So right now, I don't know, feels like the ice age. Any more questions? Anything else? See if I have anything written down here. I think this is also a reminder that God is never going to ask us to do something that we can't do. So if God were to say, Noah, build me an altar and make a sacrifice, God's not going to give up animals that he saved for a year to replenish this earth just to be sacrificed for him. He's not that kind of God. He is going to provide for it. And so whatever God's calling you to do, whatever God asks you to do, he's also going to provide a way for you to do it. He's never going to ask you to do something you can't actually accomplish in that. So if he's asking you to just go to extremes, because that's the easiest way to make it, is be a missionary in a different culture, in a different place. He's going to provide everything for it to happen. Or to be, I use Tyler kind of as an example a lot with FCA, that he wanted to go full time with them, and then God provided different people to support him financially to be able to do what he does at FCA. Got a guy named Ben that's from Israel, shared a story this last Wednesday, and he works for FCA kind of underground. You can't really say you work for FCA or be Christian in Israel, which is kind of amazing in itself. So he's here getting funding to be able to do what he does over there and to share the gospel and to be a witness. And so different people, he knows that he's called and that God is going to provide. He just doesn't know how he's going to provide. And so he's seeking out that right now. So continue to pray for Ben. He traveled back. I think he travels back tomorrow to Israel, be with his family and everything. And, you know, there's war going on there. He said it's not affecting so much right in Jerusalem where he is. But, I mean, it could very easily. All right. Any other questions? So next week, hope you all can make it again. We're going to have breakfast, and so on the group me, sign up to bring something, and then we'll bring some tables in here and everything, just kind of hang out and then close out this Noah series. We got one more. You think Noah would live right, but Noah's going to get drunk next week, so I'm going to see the fall of that. Yeah.
I mean, can you blame him, really? Because
Been through a lot.
He's on a boat with his
I mean,
wife and his.
could you imagine
That's our like.
being on a boat for every
now
year,
there's an
having to
ice age.
go through the trauma
I mean,
of a flood, and
How
then
quickly
an
he
ice
learned
age
how to make
possibly,
alcohol
like-
again.
Yeah,
He had grapes fermenting.
Yeah, he had a whole 371 days on that boat. You know.
I might go find where the wine is too. I don't know.
So where
Figure
is the
that out
ark, I
somehow.
guess, is a question.
So, yeah.
Hey, you open that can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah, it's. I think someone's.
Somebody's found some.
I think like 2 years ago, someone said they found it, like the actual place, but yeah, I think it's been debunked since then.
To Ethiopia.
Yeah, it would still be in the Middle East somewhere in that area because it wouldn't have been too far. We think that society started in Egypt area. That's where you could trace everything back to. So the flood or Noah would have lived in that area. And then it probably wouldn't have traveled too far from there. They say it's in the mountains, a mountain range somewhere.
What are we
It's
talking
right
about?
there.
Mount Ararat?
Yeah, it's something,
It's a volcano in Turkey.
a volcano in Turkey, so up into Turkey.
Mount Ararat.
Yeah, But, I mean, it's all speculation, because,
We don't really know.
I mean, you think they would have known it by now.
at least built a Ebenezer or something. A rock formation. When you and your children come by here and see this rock formation, you tell them the story of Noah. Maybe they learn from that. Maybe we should have started making altars and all these things, because that's what they do when they cross the Jordan. They put all the rocks up there and they say, "Now, tell all the generations from this point forward what happened." All right, let me pray. Our Father, we thank you for this day, and Father, as we look at this and look at this story, Father, we know that you orchestrated, that you did it, and that as we try to piece this into our worldview and to our understanding of what happened in our past, and Father, that we can learn from it. Father, that we pray that you give us grace in that, in our speculation and things like that. And Father, that it wouldn't be a place of disfellowship or can't hang out with somebody because of certain beliefs when it comes to this kind of stuff. But Father, that ultimately we see from your word what you want us to have, and Father, the rest we kind of piece it together. And we thank you for this story of grace, and that Father, as we see a rainbow from this point forward, that we're reminded that of your covenant, that you will never destroy us in that way, and Father, that we don't have to worry about that, think about that. And Father, even though there are other natural disasters and things going on, nothing to the size or to the effect that the flood had on the earth. And Father, pray that we would just understand that and live it out. And we thank you again for this group and the opportunity to get together this morning. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.